works of Shakespeare are often considered to be timeless classics, relevant to every age and every man. However, the truth of the matter is that they are full of many references to Elizabethan England, the pleasures, the pastimes, and many other features. The upper class was afforded the largest range of pleasures and pastimes due to the fact that they had more resources and time to devote to entertainment. Some everyday activities for the upper class included gossip and embroidery, which could be done anywhere, as well as disciplining your servants.
Oh, I do love embroidery. Almost finished. Where's my tea? Servants!
Yes, madam.
I heard you need discipline. I heard that you bring the tea late and you're wearing short pants.
Yes, madam.
So go pour me a cup of tea, would you? And look at what I've just finished. My embroidery. It's a sampler. It says thee, thou, thy.
That's very lovely, madam.
Thank you. Now get going.
Yes, madam.
Commerce could take the form of either going into town to shop, or inviting a tradesman into your home so you could see their wares. A very common practice during this time was to write letters to friends or distant acquaintances.
Dear Horatio, the other day I was down on Cock Street. You know, the one where they engage in all sorts of rank nose painting. Well, I was approached by a real boggler, you know. Should have seen the bosom on that one. Anyway, I had some coins on me, so I went to do the deed, and wouldn't you know it, that frosty fish was positively sunburnt. Well, I just hurried home to the old hen. She can please a bauble as well as anyone. Sincerely, Archibald.
For about £40, one could sit in front of an artist and have their portrait painted.
Now that you're in position, I can begin painting. Now just stand it perfectly still for the next 3 hours. Oh yes, coming along just beautifully now.
I don't mean to pry, but it's blue.
Oh yes, it's to accentuate your eyes.
Oh, well, you're the artist.
Indeed. What then?
Are you quite sure it looks like me?
Oh yes, this will be this. Spit an image.
Other activities included arranging your child's marriage, planning your daughter's wedding, learning neighboring languages like French or Spanish, and inviting actors into your home to entertain you.
I must say, my dear Horatia, I'm excited for our daughter's wedding.
Oh, so am I. It's going to be a lovely affair. We should invite the actors over for entertainment.
Indeed, and perhaps we can even read passages from Chaucer's Canterbury Tales.
Oh, it's one of the best classics.
Even though the English is a little outdated by now.
Oh.
And we can even invite some people from that neighboring country of ours across the channel.
Which one was that?
This was France.
Oh, you must teach me some phrases so I may talk to them.
It's a very bizarre language. The nouns, they have genders, and tables and chairs are feminine, yet a sofa is masculine.
How bizarre.
Very strange. Thank goodness we're here in England.
A chase was an enclosed plot of land, usually surrounded by shrubbery, used primarily for hunting or farming. Chases were royal property managed by foresters, but even unwooded land could be claimed for the royalty as their exclusive domain. Most large estates had chases as well. Hunting was an activity that every class could take part in, however it was a slightly different affair for the upper class. Hunting with the queen was a privilege extended only to the aristocracy. Every member of the upper class was expected to hunt unless they were prevented by infirmity or old age. It was highly uncommon for anyone to be squeamish in this era. Hunting was a chance for the upper class to show off their new fashion and technology. The lower class would copy the fashion as best they could, while the technology was later implemented. One such innovation was an arrowhead that was later used to fell knights due to its armor-piercing capabilities.
Oh, gents, I found the fox. Oh, hounds, oh, scuttlebutt.
Boar were hunted on foot, while deer were hunted on horseback. Boar hunting is referenced in Venus and Adonis, whereas hunting with hounds is mentioned in Midsummer Night's Dream. An exclusively upper-class aspect of hunting was that of hawking, or falconry. Eagles were reserved for kings and queens, but no other restrictions on birds were made. Like horses, attempts were made to breed purebred birds. However, it was much more common for the birds to be traded. Only the upper class could afford to train and maintain the birds. In Othello Act 3, Scene 3, the title character uses hawking images to describe his wife Desdemona. If I do prove her haggard, though that her jesses were my dear heartstrings, I'd whistle her off and let her down the wind to pray at fortune. Like a hawk, if Desdemona was too wild to be faithful, Othello would release her despite his love of her. Members of the upper class could take part in many different kinds of sports, one of which was tennis. During Shakespeare's time, tennis was played indoors for high stakes, on covered wooden areas. Unlike the tennis of today, the only goal was to get the ball over the line. There were no out of bounds. In the King Henry plays, tennis balls are sent as a practical joke. Other sports included jousting and fencing.
Forsooth, we shall fence, just like in that new play Hamlet. On guard!
Archery and horse riding were both sports that one could do while hunting or for pure enjoyment. Due to the need to work and procure food, members of the lower class had fewer options for day-to-day pleasures and pastimes. Chases were loathed by the lower class because the useful land was cut off from them. While the chases acted as hunting preserves for the upper class, the lower class still used them for private hunting, although this was illegal and they were often arrested for poaching. Numerous anti-enclosure riots took place during the time of Shakespeare's writings. Groups of 6, but often larger, would gather at the edge of an chase or enclosure and begin tearing up the shrubbery that cut off the land in a festival-like atmosphere.
Pox on the rich. Taking all our lands for their chases. I'd like to chase them off these lands myself. Yes, that's what I'd do. So I can finally get some food ever since I made that loathsome painting.
What are you doing
Oh!
on my private chase?
Well, I was hungry, sir.
That's not my problem.
The lower class could legally take part in hunting. However, they could not afford any mounts such as horses or hawks to do falconry. During the hunts, the lower class would see the fashion modeled by the higher class members, and thus try to copy it as best they could. Without mounts, the lower class was restricted to hunting on foot, usually hunting for venery, which was any game meat, but usually deer. While the lower class had little time to enjoy themselves, when they did, there were certain activities that every class could take part in. Anyone could visit the gardens, contemplating amongst the flowers.
Oh dear, I don't know what to do. Everyone wants me to get married, but I haven't found anyone good enough to be the King of England.
Another pastime that could be enjoyed by everyone was superstition and fortune-telling. Mysticism fascinated those in Elizabethan England, as evidenced by the witches in Macbeth. One of the most commonly known pleasures and pastimes in Elizabethan England was the theatre. In addition to increased accommodations with larger ticket price, the theatre also incorporated many of the pastimes of the day into the plays, thus capitalizing on the entertainment. Flags hung at the top of the theatre indicated the type or genre of the play to be shown, making it easier for people to decide if they wanted to spend the money to see the play. Some of the more bloody entertainments include bull baiting, cockfighting, and bear baiting, with bear baiting being the most popular. During a bear baiting event, a bear would be chained up to a post. The arena setup was almost exactly the same as a Shakespearean theatre, and often the two could be used interchangeably. Hungry dogs were released to attack the bear, and if any of the dogs were killed or tired out, more dogs were added. As the event drew to a close, the dogs were removed, and the bear would be attacked with people with whips, at which point the bear would dramatically attack, breaking the whips. Bear baiting was enjoyed by Queen Elizabeth herself, and she would often invite people to witness the event with her. One bear often used during bear baiting became particularly well known. It was a bear named Sackerson. Bear baiting is mentioned in Twelfth Night. In Winter's Tale, there is a stage direction exit pursued by bear. In Macbeth, Act 5, Scene 7, Macbeth begins the scene describing himself chained like a bear during bear baiting. Another bloody activity that could be enjoyed by everyone was that of executions. Executions were almost always public affairs that the whole family could attend. Serious offenders would be hanged until near death, cut down, and then drawn. Their intestines would be exposed and sometimes burned. The execution would usually end by being quartered, either by having the limbs cut off by sword or pulled apart by horse. In some cases, the executioners would cut off the ears of the offender, or slash the nose or forehead, or brand them.
Forsooth, for thrice this man has disturbed the peace of our fair Yorkshire. For thrice this man has let his sheep graze in the pastures where eglantine grows. And thrice this man has crossed my path, but never more shall he cross my path again, for he is ordered to be executed by drawing, quartering, and hanging in any particular order.
You look nervous. Have you ever done this before?
No, sir. This is my first execution.
Well, don't be hasty, because there's no fun in that. It's all in the mind, you see. And I've done this many times before. It's quite enjoyable when you get the ratio quite right. Now, being nervous, it's understandable, but really you have to be straightforward. You have to go all the way through, but be very, very precise. It's an art. It's an art of pain endurance, not necessarily infliction. You have to get the ratio precisely right between the amount of pain at which I do not pass out, and yet is the most possible excruciation that one can possibly endure. But at the same time, you have to do it creatively, like before you stretch my limbs off, maybe do some little incisions or something that will show me my skin ripping off and tearing apart as I watch myself peel away into pieces. That's much more exciting. Oh, I can feel it already. Oh, yes.
You have some great ideas, sir.
Yes. I could do this for a living, I think, or dying. Ha!
A common form of gambling that everyone could take part in was the tables, known to us now as backgammon. Dicing games, such as hazard, used blank dice thrown onto a numbered board instead. Card games of the era included Primero, Trump, Gleek, Newcut, and Taroko. Taroko translates to silly or foolish, although the game was essentially tarot cards. Tarot is the name of the game in French. Another activity open to everyone was prostitution. Prostitution was considered sinful but necessary to keep sinful men away from decent women. By law, prostitutes were required to live on Cock Lane. Prostitution was an approved source of income for non-religious women. Important terms of the era included stew, which was a whorehouse or shrugging den, drab, which was a prostitute, a drabber, a man who was with a prostitute too often, a punk, a woman who was suspecting of working in a stew, and Winchester geese, working girls in the Bishop of Winchester's domain. Both prostitution and gambling are shown in the Henry IV history plays. The pleasures and pastimes of Elizabethan England give an important context, both to the content of the plays and the world they were written in.